The first topic this afternoon is about SMS, and we have a few colleagues who work together on this topic who will guide you through the presentation, starting with Michael. Again.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, it's again me here, but I will be short. I don't want to disappoint you with only having to listen to me. This presentation I'm going to share with two of my colleagues, Jean-Pierre Arnaud, who is a safety management expert at EASA, and with Natale Di Rubo, who is the regulations officer developing the proposal, the text for the Part 21 rules on SMS. So if, as Natale mentioned before, lunch, Jones was your appetizer, now here's your digestif. Let's see what we have in mind with SMS, what you're going to see in a couple of days from us or weeks as a proposal for SMS in Part 21.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to see so many people in this room. I have been tasked to keep you awake for this afternoon, which is not that easy. And to keep you awake, I have another topic, which is SMS. And when we speak of SMS, especially in the design and production domain, we always get the same comment, why do we need an SMS? So it is true that the safety of products has been tremendous high in the past year. Not only we have a lot of requirements identifying generic risk as regard to the design and production of product. But we have also this so-called CS25 paragraph 1309, which is about product safety and failure condition associated with the system. And in addition to that, if we go to Part 21, paragraph 139 for the design organization or 139 for the production organization and 239 for the design organization, it is supported by a quality system and for design by a design assurance system. So most of the time people say we don't need an SMS, but in fact SMS addresses something else. So a complementary safety management system aims at improving the overall safety with a continuous improvement mechanism through safety assurance. One of the pillars is the identification of risk at organizational level, not anymore at product level. And it should provide the basis to aim at maintaining and improving the level of safety despite growing aviation market and increasing complexity. I think that the scheme that you have on the screen right now was presented by Michaela this morning. The ICAO forecast are that in the next 15 years, the traffic is going to double. So we have to find our way how to maintain as low as possible the occurrences. That's the reason why in years 2010s, the ICAO Assembly took the decision to introduce a systematic identification of hazard and risk mitigation for aviation. So that was basically a global approach where we don't want to focus only on the product, but also to focus on the organization is there any risk that can be identified at the level of the organization and that may have an impact on safety? Should it be in terms of operation or should it be in terms of the product itself? So for you, I have listed on the screen, I hope you can read it, but I'm sure you will get the slides. I have identified some risks that are inherent to the domain of design and production at the level of the organization itself. So it could be unanticipated failure cases of the product, something that has not been seen during the design of the product. It could be a lack of understanding of new technology, and I think with digital technology, this is something very important for us. It could be defect during the manufacturing of product. Sometimes this is due to management of change. For instance, it might be that for any reason there is a need to change the production rate at the assembly, and I know this is currently the case with the Airbus 320neo or with the new generation of Boeing 737. There is a lot of aircraft to deliver in the next 10 years, and these large manufacturers are pushing for an increase of production. So it may stress the whole assembly chain, it may stress the supply chain, it may stress your contractors. So that's something that is not addressed currently by Part 21, but will have to be addressed through the SMS. Another example could be failure to control technical changes or configuration of aircraft. That's something you are all familiar with that. It could be sometimes local risk at the facility, such as storage or preservation. You may think that these examples are not relevant to you, but believe me, those that I have put on the screens are supported, unfortunately, by some occurrences, even sometimes incidents. So this is not something that has been invented. This is real life. Another aspect, but I don't need to extend too much about that, you are very familiar, inspection and testing is key in your process, and unfortunately we have some records of accidents during the testing of aircraft. So this is why in 2010, ICAO took the decision to make SMS applicable to all organizations that contribute to safety, and in particular to design and production. The objective is to have a more, to stay away or to move a little bit away from what we call the reactive approach towards a more proactive approach where we try to detect and anticipate, and the safety culture and the occurrence reporting culture is one way to tackle that, because we expect that in a free environment where people are encouraged to report issues at the design facility or organization or at the assembly line, it could help a lot. So, the next question, maybe just coming back to my previous slide, beginning of October took place in Montreal the Air Navigation Conference, which prepares the next assembly for the ICAO member state, and it has been confirmed that the most important driver for the future in order to keep safety as low as possible is risk management capabilities. Should it be at the level of the organization or should it be at the level of the states? And the first outcome from standardization, from inspectors overseeing your organization, but also in the other domain, is that for the moment, there is no enough robust risk management capabilities. So when we speak of SMS, it's always why SMS? And then the next question is, what are the benefits if we implement an SMS? So I will not focus only on the benefit, but I will also focus on the lessons that we have learned from the organization in the other domain, what they have found positive when implementing an SMS. The first aspect that has been reported to us that it allows a better understanding of the risk picture and performance of the organization. So now we are not anymore only speaking of the product itself, we are also speaking of the organization. How do your operation looks like? How does my organization perform? This is a question we should ask ourselves. Do I perform very well? What about my organization? Do I have any risk that I should better consider? So this is one of the benefits of SMS. By engaging on a robust and systematic identification of hazard, and then addressing these hazards, how to mitigate them, it has been found that it has been profitable for the organization. But it's also allow you, as soon as you have a log of hazard, you can identify which risk associated to this hazard pose you the main concern. And you can start to manage, you can start to identify your greater risk and define what your priorities are. Define what are your safety objectives for the next 2 years, 5 years. And you can try to manage the risk in a meaningful way. And what I mean by meaningful way, start to interview your staff. And they will tell you the next problem that we're going to have is going to be this, is going to be that, is going to be that hazard. We should take good care of this or that. And as soon as you start to do that and say, okay, maybe we have a risk here, how should we mitigate that risk? As soon as you develop a strategy to mitigate these risks that are fully connected to the concern of your staff, there will be benefits. And this is a modern way of managing the organization. It's also a way to better engage and to safety engage with your subcontractors, suppliers, customers. And at the end, it will help you to set up safety objective within your organization. For sure, all this is a new approach, but doesn't mean we are going to revolutionize the process. No, this is absolutely not what we mean with SMS. SMS first complement your existing system and should build on your existing processes. If your NA inspectors expect you to develop a 200 pages safety management manual, I can already tell you it will not work. It will not work. You have to build on your existing processes. A new manual has no interest. But if you take your existing processes and you try to identify the risk at the organizational level and how it can impact the safety of your product, then you are in a win-win situation. It's a change of mindset, definitely. It's a change of culture, not only for the organization, but also for the overseeing regulators. Clearly, identifying the risk, having a risk picture, should it be at the level of the organization, should it be at the level of the state, and managing this risk is something new that is going to complement the so-called compliance concept. It doesn't disrupt the compliance with a requirement. It just comes on top of compliance. And hopefully it will create a new atmosphere, a new working atmosphere between your inspectors and your organization, because this time it's not anymore, the objective is not anymore to audit and identify whether you are compliant and potentially issue findings. No, this is not what SMS is about. It's really about engaging a discussion with the organization. Where are you at risk? What is your next occurrence? Can you detect it? Do you have signals to identify and proactively act on that? This is the benefit and the lesson learned, and we start to have some good feedback from operations in the field of air ops, for instance, telling us, yes, it has definitely a benefit for us.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. So what we did now is how we implemented all the concepts provided by Jean-Pierre into Part 21. So Annex 19 defines how an organization should be structured in order to be able to assess the risk, manage the risk, and at the end, the final goal is to deliver a safe product. But actually, Part 21, in the way it was structured in Europe since the beginning, we already have some organizational requirements for design organization, and the same is for production organization, in which we already mandate a structure asking the organization to ready to manage the change, to document the activity, or to identify all occurrence and reporting to the reporting and managing, to have resources in order to have to be able to produce and design a product, and also to have a management system. In our case, is a design assurance system that is able to make sure that everything is collected and at the end the product is safe. So we decided that we should not invent anything new. We should just build on top of what is already available in Part 21. The difference is that at this moment the DOA and POA as well, they are more focused on product, while instead there is something more than product. So we need to verify also all the other organizational aspects. So we need just to integrate what we already have today in Part 21 with the step missing in order to have a full overview of what could be the risk, not only close to the product safety.
One of the most important decisions that we have to take and that we had to discuss in the past months was to whom do we make these SMS requirements applicable. We conducted, as usual, a regulatory impact assessment, a RIA, that we will share with you as part of the NPA. I would already like to show you here what, for the purpose of the proposal, we have concluded. And I would like to show you where the differences are compared to ICAO. So the first conclusion that we took is that requiring a full set of SMS for all organizations designing or producing products is not cost effective. That would be appropriate, same level as ICAO Annex 16. But we think it's not appropriate, so we will not require it for all organizations. We will limit, or we propose to limit the SMS requirements to those organizations who are required to hold an approval. So we are talking about the cases where under the eligibility criteria for the design organization, we have 21A, 14A, you are required to hold a DOA, or where you're required to hold a POA. For those organizations who are not approved, so I'm talking about the AP to DOA, 21A14B, or where we accept the certification program, 21A14C, they will not be subject to the full SMS requirements. But please keep in mind that these organizations are already subject to the Occurrence Reporting Regulation, Regulations 376 from 2014, which has quite a number of elements from SMS already incorporated, like the occurrence reporting, the safety culture, trust culture. These requirements already exist for these organizations, and that's why we are going to mirror them. It's not a new requirements, but we're going to mirror these existing requirements also in Part 21. But for those organizations, AP and CERT program, we will stay below the level of ICAO Annex 16. For one small element, we will go beyond we propose to go beyond what is in ICAO Annex 19, which are those organizations who design and manufacture parts and decide to have them certified as part of the ETS-OA. Parts in the ICAO Annex 19 world are not subject to SMS, but in the case where you as an organization decide, I want to have on my article an ETS-OA, then according to the risk scheme that is already included in Part 21, you are required to have a POA, and in the case of an APU, also a DOA. And if that's the case, or for these elements of your authorization, you will also be subject to SMS. This is going a little bit beyond what is in ICAO Annex 19. So our proposal that you will see in a couple of weeks will be based on the assumption all organizations that hold a DOA or a POA are required to comply with SMS. This is one important decision for all of what is going to follow. So we want specifically to get your feedback on this scope. You will see, as part of the impact assessment, also our analysis, what are the related costs, how many companies are affected in the one or other case. So please have a look. And in case you don't agree with the data that we put in there, or you don't agree with the proposal, please let us know your comments, and then we will reflect that when defining the final scope of the SMS requirements.
Now I will give you some additional details on the contents, on what we really changed. So you can see that here I listed the main elements in the section, mostly in Subpart J, a part for 21.3a for in Subpart A, where that were affected by these changes. So the first, the point 247 is a very minor change just to extend the management of changes, not only to product change, but also to organizational change. So everything that can affect the full safety of the environment. Also on the handbook, we already have in Part 21 a requirements to document all the activity. And here we extended the requirements to include also safety policy and other safety procedures. Now, the safety policy, safety procedures can be either a separate document or can be embedded in the handbook. We want to give maximum flexibility also to allow organizations that have multiple approval or with other domains, and they may have an overarching manual for safety, and so they can just refer in the handbook to this manual. So the approach was try to make as much as flexible as we can and continue to have Part 21 in a very performance-based approach. Occurrence report, so as Michael said, we just made change to reflect what is in the 376, and this is actually in the Subpart A, so this means that this is the only point is applicable to all organizations, including those that are not approved. The change here, we included not only the mandatory reporting, but also the voluntary reporting. This means that the person working in each organization can provide information to their management regarding a mishap or possible error, something that then can help then the management to understand what is the reason behind that problem, that error, what is the risk, and how they can improve in order to prevent something that, even if did not result in a final occurrence, could have potentially become an occurrence. So in this way, we'll move to a reactive to a proactive mood. Resources. Here, you will see that there will be apparently some major change because we decide that in the way today is written, the 245 is not exactly reflecting how the DOA are organized. So we decided we would like to spell out that there is a need to nominate a head of the design organization and some main function, like a chief of the Office of Airworthiness and the chief of independent monitoring of compliance and adequacy function. So it's just reflecting what is what you are doing today. Other than this, we don't have other additional big changes. The major changes instead are on the 239 or 139 for production organization, where in addition to the requirements for the design assurance that remain unchanged, we added another elements. So first of all, we changed the name in design management system. So now we require organization to have a full design management system made of two elements. The first element is design assurance, and the second one is the safety management. And here we listed the 12 elements that are based on the ICAO Annex 19. So you will reflect in this way one-to-one, more or less, what is in the ICAO Annex 19. And so you will see here that we mandate the safety policy. We mandate the organization to collect the risk, analyze the risk, and define what are mitigation adequate to the risk. So as you can see, the changes are not substantial. So you will not be required to radically modify your organization, but it's just to adapt and build on top of what you already have, the missing elements. And the good thing is that if you already have a safety organization coming from requirements because you have maybe an approval on other domains. Also here in design management system, you give you the flexibility to reuse all the activity that you already have performed and for which you already have received the approval on other domains.
So you will see the detailed text proposal reflecting what Natale just presented to you in a couple of weeks in our NPA. I would like to familiarize yourself with, let's say, 4 drafting principles, drafting objectives that we try to apply when developing the text proposals. And I would like to measure our proposals against these drafting principles if you make your comments. So if you don't see something properly reflected or not sufficiently reflected, please let us know. And you will see this goes also back to what we've discussed before the lunch break, that we are trying to make the rules more objective-based, more performance-based. At the rule level, with the first point, we try to introduce as much as possible scalability, proportionality in the regulation itself, looking at the risks that are affected. So it should be risk-based, considering the size of the organization and the nature and complexity of its activities. One example that you could already see reflected in the scope, not all design organizations are required to comply with SMS, only those which have to have an organization approval, DOA, POA. It's one example for that. We also want to introduce the requirements which are not too descriptive, but provide the regulatory objective, rather the prescription of what you have to do. So more what to achieve and not how to get there. At the level of the AMCs, and a little bit also the guidance material, we also want to develop AMCs which propose one possibility on how you can comply with the requirements in Part 21 without being in the AMCs so prescriptive that we determine on how you have to set up your organization. One example that we discussed in the rulemaking group, focus consultation group, was we will not put in an AMC the post of a safety manager, that you have to have a post of a safety manager or of the safety review board, but you have to build your organization so to have the function somewhere. It doesn't have the name safety manager or safety review board. But if you can demonstrate that in your organization you have functions that reflect the role of these safety manager or safety review board, then this is an acceptable means of compliance. And also in the AMC, we want to provide scalable AMCs, which can be used dependent on the size of your organization, the complexity of your activities, and we also want to provide you with alternatives of AMCs. So there's not necessarily one AMC that you can use, and if you use that, there's a presumption of compliance. But we also provide you 1, 2, maybe sometimes 3 AMCs on how to demonstrate compliance with the rule. I want to give you one example here on the AMCs, which are typically developed in consistency with what has been developed as AMCs in the other domains, Ops, FCL, ATM. We want to be aligned in principle with the AMCs in the other domains, because some of your organizations may be subject to several approvals, so the AMCs need to be the same in principle. But you will see that it's not one-to-one copied from the other domains. We adapted it to the requirements in Part 21 and the needs in Part 21. So you can use these AMCs as an acceptable means of compliance. Of course, as normal, you can also develop your own means of compliance and then demonstrate that they are compliant with Part 21. But, and that's the point that I want to make here, we also will have one alternative AMC. So I'm not talking about an ALTMOC, alternative means of compliance. It's an alternative AMC, a second AMC, by which we will recognize the industry standard that was developed by you, some of your colleagues, and published about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the International Industry Standard on SMS. So you will find in our proposal one AMC that if you comply with the industry standard, then this is an acceptable means of compliance with Part 21. There's one small caveat that I need to make at this stage to it, because the rule is not yet final. We are still in a process of assessing the industry standard, and you may find at the end of the proposal, it will not be reflected in the NPA yet, but at the end you may find a list of 2, 3, 4, 5 elements that we will require in addition. So the AMC will probably read like, if you are demonstrating compliance with the industry standard plus A, B, C, then you are compliant with the rule. You can see something similar already existing in Part 21 and the production domain in relation to the ISO 9100 standard. So it's a tool that we already used in the past. So, but the basis is we do recognize the industry standard, the same approach as the FAA, also in relation to Part 5. On the FAA side, you will find an appendix and a list of differences of what needs to be demonstrated to the FAA in addition to show compliance with Part 5 in the US.
So far we were describing the changes in Section A, where there are all the requirements for the organization. Now instead, just want to give a very quick overview of the changes on the Section B, so the authority requirements. In this case, we decide to have a different approach. So not to have a gap analysis, but to have a full alignment of the requirements on the authority between the other domain, between the different domains in the aviation world. So we took as a reference the last regulation that was published by EASA, that is Part CAMO, and we introduced almost all the elements with a small adaptation to what is required in Part 21, for design and production, but more or less is the same requirements coming from Part CAMO. And also we developed a set of AMC that they are reflecting what is what will be in Part CAMO in the future. The reason is because the aviation authority will be more effective if they will have one similar organization, one similar structure that will audit all organization independently of what is the domain. So it's something that will be beneficial for them, and beneficial also for all the other industry to have always the same kind of approach independently of what is coming from, especially when you have a different authorization. If you have one Part 145 authorization and then you have a DOA, so you should always have a consistent way to receive audits. The timeline. So the MPA is really in the final phase here in EASA. So before the end of the year, we will publish it. Then we have the standard 3 months consultation period that will finish sometime at the end of the first quarter of next year. We will review all comments that we receive from all of you, and we will adapt the proposal based on the feedback. And we plan to publish the opinion to the European Commission beginning of 2020. From this point on, the European Commission will develop their legislative act. They will start the discussion with the member state, with all the stakeholders, and we expect that almost in 1 year it will be the publication of the regulation. So by 2021, we may have Part 21 updated with the SMS. This is the end of the presentation, and we are available for questions.
Thanks to the 3 colleagues. We got a number of questions. I think a lot of them are for clarification because, for example, why do you need a new function, Chief of Independent Monitoring of Compliance, since you have a head of organization of worthiness who stay compliance, and what does the ISM doing? So maybe some clarification on this.
So the question is if we added a new function, the independent safety monitoring system. We did not added any new function. So today in the DOA we already have the requirements for the design assurance and for an independent checking function. So we keep as it is. We just specified in the regulation what are the main figures that today we already require in the DOA. So we are exactly reflecting what is today. The only thing that we added is the safety management function. The safety manager does not need to be a person with his unique job is to be a safety manager. Can be also a person that has an additional task, and then on top he can be the safety manager. And his role is to make sure that the safety culture is spread within the organization, because safety is not a task of a single person. Safety is something that should be shared by all. So he's just the coordinator of the activity. So in addition to the safety manager function, we did not add any additional function to what you already have today.
Okay, the next question is related to small organizations and whether they could be exempted from SMS. Is there any consideration on that?
Depends on how you define small organizations. So for those one, if your eligibility criteria are 21A, 14B and C, so let's say roughly speaking ELA 1, ELA 2 aircraft, then yes, you are not subject to the full set of SMS requirements. That's our proposal, just to the occurrence reporting requirements that you are anyhow subject to because of Regulation 376. If you are above that threshold, so you have a DOA or a POA, then you are subject to the requirements. And then what is important is that the rules and the AMCs to demonstrate compliance are scalable, are proportionate. So you will not have the full set of compliance as it may be the case for Airbus or Dassault or Leonardo.
In between, any questions from the floor directly? Again, not the case. Okay. Two more questions then from Slido. The first one is whether we plan to benchmark with other approved organizations like POA, MOA, or CAMO. Is that something we consider?
No, it's not considered. I would even say it's the opposite. If you hold, or there are a couple of organizations who hold several of approvals, and you will find a provision in the AMCs that you can reuse some of the compliance demonstration that you have done, for example, as an MOA, also for your production organization approval. So we need to stay aligned in the principles. So I don't see any element of benchmarking there.
Maybe just one point for historical record. There were discussions at the very beginning on having a single system, and I think from industry that was really something you were concerned about, to have the same regulatory system applied for any organization. And that was, I speak under our colleagues' control here in the working group, that has generated a lot of internal discussions and brainstorming. Today, it is clear that there are a lot of commonalities, there are a lot of common principles, but benchmarking would be dangerous because we are addressing two different populations. Inside a population, benchmarking is almost automatic because we have performance monitoring, so that's quite normal. Now, in between two slightly different populations, it may lead to dangerous conclusions. So for now, a wise approach is really to develop systems which are really suited for a population, for a given set of industry needs, and then, of course, under the big umbrella, which is high level enough to cover all.
Yeah, I would like to add that this is not my understanding of what SMS should deliver. It is true that in the future there might be some harmonized safety performance indicators, but we are not there. This is not for today, even not for tomorrow. As I explained in my presentation, the objective of the SMS is really to identify your local risk, what is inherent and relevant to your organization. It may completely differ, the risk picture may completely be different from one organization to another. So this is not, the intent is not to benchmark.
Okay, then one last question. Does EASA have a foresight on defining and manage safety performance indicators for design and production organization?
I will just answer that, yes, this is challenging to develop safety performance indicators. Again, this will be the responsibility of the organization to identify this risk, to identify the mitigation measure, what we call the defense barriers, and to collect data to ensure the efficiency of these safety barriers. Again, these indicators could vary from one organization to another. As regards to the support that we could provide you, first, the SMS industry standards that you have seen on the screen propose some generic indicators. You may use it, you may not use it. And on our side, at the moment, we are internally developing a paper where we also try to identify some indicators that could help you to engage. And as soon as the paper is mature, we will share it with you.
Okay, thanks very much to the colleagues on this topic of SMS. And now I hand over to Anna.